welcome everybody. I am very happy to introduce one of our Senior Medicare Patrol volunteers, one of our volunteer educators, Diane Moskal, who has been with our program for many years. Diane, welcome to the SMP Fraudcast Podcast. How are you?
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, you're correct. I have been with the SMP as a volunteer educator, I think for a little over a decade at this point. And I also jointly do volunteer work with the Pennsylvania State Health Insurance Program, which is called Pennsylvania MEDI, MEDI now. And I do that work for Montgomery County. So, and I find that both of those programs work together really well.
Yep, absolutely. I definitely agree. And I think Pennsylvania is special. We call it PA-MEDI instead of SHIP like all the other states. But that doesn't change the fact that it is indeed a very important program, and it's a good segue into our discussion today, which is mostly about Medicare and Medicare insurance counseling, especially during the open enrollment period. So with that, Diane, what exactly is Medicare Open Enrollment? Why is it important? And just what are your general thoughts on open enrollment?
Okay. I really enjoy going out and speaking to the community during Medicare Open Enrollment. I try to do some live presentations, was able to do one last week. I also do a lot of one-on-one telephone counseling. Medicare Open Enrollment falls every year, October 15th until, or really through December 7th. And I call it Medicare shopping. And I think it's really important for all of us as Medicare beneficiaries, subscribers, to reshop our Medicare plans every year during that period. The two products we're really talking about are the Medicare Advantage plans, and that means HMOs and PPOs in the Philadelphia area, and then the separate freestanding Medicare Part D drug plans. And they, of course, accompany original Medicare. But both of those products can change so dramatically from year to year. Plans have different benefits, different out-of-pocket costs, and it's really important that beneficiaries look at their options. It could be a big money saver. One of our counselors helped someone with their Part D drug plan the other day and said that he was confident that the person was going to save approximately $600 in 2023 because of the plan change, which he had recommended. So it's extremely important. Our health needs change year to year. A plan that might have worked well for you this year or the year before, your health might have changed in a way that perhaps another plan would actually be preferable. Or you may find some of your doctors are in different networks. And so those are critical things to research and then to act on during that open enrollment period.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an excellent overview. You can't see me on the screen, obviously, because we're audio only, but I'm doing a lot of head nodding, a lot of agreement here. Everything that you've touched on there, Diane, is exactly what I recommend personally, and what Senior Medicare Patrol and PA-MEDI folks, why we exist, is to educate people about the importance of this time of year and about, taking charge of their healthcare. You mentioned a lot of different things there with Medicare plans changing, whether that be looking into a new plan or looking into what options have changed for the upcoming plan year within your own Advantage plan or original Medicare. And Part D and Part C and all these parts, it could be very confusing. So, I know we're on the SMP Fraudcast podcast here, but I do want to take a second to give you an opportunity to talk about for a quick minute or so, kind of what your work on PA-MEDI does. You mentioned the importance of having people review their plans. As a PA-MEDI SHIP counselor, where do you interface in this circumstance? How do you go about helping?
Well, what I really am privileged to be is an assigned MEDI counselor to the Jefferson Health Abington Hospital Elder Med program. And that's a program that works a lot with seniors in the Philadelphia area who just really sign up to be members. It's free. And they make me available as a counselor to their members. But then I also just generally work with the SHIP through Montgomery County Pennsylvania Medi is under the supervision and training of the Pennsylvania Department of Aging. And there is a helpline that's an 800 phone number, which is 1-800-783-7067. So again, that's 1-800-783-7067. I want people to know, Dan, that we are trained volunteers, as I say, trained by the Pennsylvania Department of Aging. We are required to be completely neutral, unbiased, and unaffiliated, with any of these insurance companies. And we're really not, members of either the federal or the state government either. Our job also, I like to emphasize, is to really try to be educators and help people know their Medicare options and make some decisions about what is best for them. We do not make those decisions. So the question is not me telling a person or a beneficiary what to do with their Medicare, but trying to understand, listening to the beneficiary, what their concerns are, what their health needs are, and then letting them know the options and having them feel comfortable with making their own choices. I want to say something too that I told my group last week when I did the presentation. It's not a race. So there's no like early discounts or something that Medicare gives, like if you make your decision quickly. It runs all the way through December 7th. So this should not be a time of panic or and some of the messages from the marketers are disturbing because it's like, you must decide now. And that's just, of course, untrue. So you have a pretty sustained period. As I say, we just started not even or just barely 2 weeks ago, and we go all the way to December 7th. So there's plenty of time to do your homework as a beneficiary, talk to friends, talk to other people. Do they like their Medicare plans? By the way, that may not mean it's the right plan for you, but all those considerations, making sure, as I said before, that you touch base with any doctor's office you feel strongly about continuing to use, just to confirm, they're going to be in that network for the next calendar year, certainly if you're doing an HMO or a PPO. And again, there's time to do that without thinking that everything has to be done immediately.
Exactly. It's excellent information. And a lot of it goes back to something we've discussed on this show before in that part of the S&P message, which is empowering beneficiaries to make informed decisions, whether that be related to fraud with protecting themselves or when it comes to open enrollment and making decisions about what is best for them related to their health care. And that's where folks like you come into play so significantly about, as you mentioned, being independent and unbiased. PA Medi-counselors are not licensed agents and brokers who are selling plans. They're advising people, providing information so that people can feel the empowerment they need to make an informed decision about their health care. It's really important, and it does interface with fraud quite a bit. So you mentioned there a little bit about not panicking with the pressure from brokers or agents or advertisements and all that other stuff that beneficiaries experience during this time of year and leading up to it, which people have described to me as being a quote-unquote bombardment, and that seems to be the case. So not panicking, not feeling the pressure, and realizing you do have time. This does go through, as you mentioned, Diane, December 7th, so there is time. It's okay to review the information and make the best decision. That's all. It's excellent information. I advise all the listeners out there to buy into the credence of what Diane is saying. It's extremely important, and it matters, and you matter, so take advantage of this service. With that, I do want to touch a little bit more on the fraud. You segued into it there, Diane. So why would we discuss fraud during open enrollment? Is that something that actually happens? Is it something we should be concerned about? And if so, why?
Okay, and Dan, I know that we both know the S&P always makes a point of saying that fraud is a unfortunate year-round concern with the Medicare program, but it does have an uptick. It always seems during particularly busy periods for Medicare, such as certainly open enrollment is. And one thing is definitely the amount, the volume of marketing materials, the jockeying among the different companies that want beneficiaries to subscribe to their plans. So I know you know, Dan, I mean, this year we've got more than ever HMOs, PPOs. There's over like 60, different plans. And while on the one hand, it's great for beneficiaries that there's a lot of choice, there's a lot of selections that can be made in our geographic area. It also opens the door then to this competition among the different companies and advertising blitzes or pitches to people. I think it's really concerning that a lot of the phone calls that me and my fellow counselors receive these days relate to some of the television ads where people are led to believe that, oh, surely there must be more wonderful things that Medicare could be giving them that they're not getting because certain TV personalities are saying so. We also worry that some of the pitches, some of this advertising tends to be a distraction from the pivotal points of you've got to worry about your doctors, your hospitals, your labs. In other words, you have to look at the fundamentals of your healthcare before you start looking at more of the add-ons. I hate to call them window dressing, Dan, because I know for some people, things like dental benefits, hearing benefits, can be certainly worth it. But we always say those should come only after you've made that initial determination that a plan is going to be solid in addressing your healthcare concerns. It's really important to shop on the basis of those critical elements of, will you be able to see your doctors? If you need to go to a hospital, can you get to the hospital that you would prefer to go to? Those are the things that should go first. The other thing we worry about is that, Medicare does have marketing rules that say that it's illegal for an agent or a broker to cold call a beneficiary or to, God forbid, show up at your door. But I think what a lot of beneficiaries, unfortunately, don't fully understand, and I'm not saying that's their mistake, I'm saying it's the way this occurs. You get something in the mail. It says, oh, if you'd like more information about this plan, check this box. And people tell me all the time, well, I thought that meant I'd get a brochure in the mail. I'd get some more in-depth information. And instead, because the beneficiary, as far as the federal government is concerned, has invited a contact by that agent or broker, then they start to get, in some cases, relentless marketing by telephone, offers of home visits, and just sometimes agent and brokers who do not want to take no for an answer. And this is where we think a lot of problems can come in. Some agents and brokers, we're told, can be very aggressive. Others can take the tactic of, I'm just your friend. I want to really do what's best for you. And in either event, people have to keep in mind, these are sales people. They are getting a commission to put you into a particular insurance plan. And that has to be something that is really front of mind. Also, we tell people all the time, be very careful if there's offers of free things. Someone told me once, and this does go back a bit because I do believe the feds cracked down on this particular fraud, but someone said, oh yeah, they told me if I went with this company, I get a free back brace through the mail. I mean, just things like that, those type of enticements or inducements, just designed to really get your business.
That's exactly right. The piece that you mentioned toward the end there about these are salespeople. They are making a commission. There is a vested interest for agents and brokers to get you into their plan. That's always something to keep in mind. And again, you mentioned a lot of really, really important topics there and several things that we could discuss further. One of those that I want to mention is what you mentioned about these people going door to door, calling on the phone, offering free services. The example about a broker offering a free back brace for signing into a plan. And it's interesting because you are correct. There was some guidelines released, I believe, this week via CMS about a report that was published saying that a vast majority of these solicitations being made by agents and brokers during this time of year are falling outside of what is actually legal within the Medicare Open Enrollment marketing guidelines and rules. It's a matter of enforcing that, and, Medicare stepping up to the plate on that point. But at either rate, and any way, this does all kind of circulate back to that piece that you mentioned at the very beginning of do your research, do your homework, seek out those services that are available. It's funny because you'll probably appreciate this, Diane. That a lot of the presentations I do for the SMP, for half an hour, I'm hammering into people's brains. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Be cautious with the word free. And then at the end, I say, there are some free services available in Pennsylvania, such as PA-Medi and the SMP.
Yes.
But I do want to reiterate that these programs are funded out of Health and Human Services Administration for Community Living. They are entirely free of charge. As you mentioned earlier, our PA-Medi counselors in Pennsylvania, our SMP volunteers, such as yourself in Pennsylvania, are highly trained. We need to follow rules and confidentiality. We are out serving in the best interest of folks. So there are a lot of things for us to unpack. I do want to take a second, I suppose, to probe a little bit further and ask you this question of, is it appropriate for a marketer or agent to offer a large meal, a buffet dinner, a surf and turf dinner for a marketing event? Is that the sort of thing that's not allowed, or is that okay?
That is definitely illegal, no question about it. Meals at marketing events are prohibited, and frankly, and I say this to people when they say, "What can I do about these things?" You definitely should report something like that. You should let Medicare know. You can, of course, always let CARIE know about it, and the SHIP as well. PA-Medi. Any of those organizations would take a real interest. And by the way, the Pennsylvania Department of Insurance, because anyone operating in the Medicare insurance sphere in Pennsylvania has to also deal with the Pennsylvania Department of Insurance, and they take complaints as well. I actually had an adult son, not on the meal subject, but on the subject of how he felt his parents, who had been on apparently a very fine retirement Medicare plan, basically a Medigap, but it was paid for through his dad's long-term employment. And then last year during Medicare Open Enrollment, his parents, who were in their early 90s, got a phone call, unsolicited apparently, from a broker who was like, "Oh, I can put you in a better plan." And this particular broker became kind of a phone friend to this couple, and then without them consulting anyone, because the son basically only found out about it after the father was bragging that, he was going to be able to now save all this money for him and the mom the next year on Medicare. And that's how the son found out that they had been moved from a Medigap, a Medicare supplemental plan that had worked always very well for this couple, into an HMO, which didn't even have some of their doctors in network. And he reported this broker to the Pennsylvania Department of Insurance, who said, the whole thing and he was able, in this case, fortunately, to have that transaction undone. But these are the type of situations which trouble us in the SMP and in Pennsylvania Medi quite a bit. Beneficiaries who become targets, become subject to this very assertive, aggressive over-marketing, and are making decisions without them realizing they are, that are not in their best interests as Medicare beneficiaries. The meals, now, you can get a light snack during a marketing event. So I'm not saying like they can never give you food or a bottle of water or something, but it would be in terms of a light refreshments, not a full meal for sure.
Yeah, and a bag of Cheez-Its and water is different than a steak dinner, I think.
Correct.
So I
Yes.
do like Cheez-Its. That's beside the point. Again, this all it compounds, as you had mentioned in a previous example about one of your fellow counselors having an experience where all of a sudden out-of-pocket costs are $600 higher in a plan year. And this experience you described here with this couple in their early 90s who had a good plan, were taken care of, everything was probably still in network with their providers, they get switched, really without them knowing what is happening, what the consequences of being switched are, and then kind of being bamboozled when they go to receive services, and all of a sudden they have a larger out-of-pocket cost. And the emphasis you place there on reporting is critically important. It is very, very useful for not only the state government, the federal government to be aware of these things. They can strip the license off of agents and brokers who are acting maliciously. And the insurance department is a great resource. Let them know, let us know at the SMP. Information is provided even after this conversation. Let PA-Medi know. Diane, you've mentioned the number a couple times already. Let Medicare know, report these things, because it is possible to get switched back into the appropriate plan if the behavior of the agent or broker that caused the erroneous switch in the first place was illegal or malpractice. We can get that switched, and that's very, very important. So this is all great information. I want to ask then, what we're talking a lot about all these kind of scary things, these malicious persons trying to take advantage of people. What can beneficiaries or their families, caregivers, anybody interfacing with the Medicare Open Enrollment environment, what can they do to protect themselves during this time of year?
Well, I think, again, the resources we're talking about, certainly knowing there are helpers. There are helpers out there like the Pennsylvania SHIP program known as PA-Medi, and that's, free, unbiased assistance. And we really try very hard in Montgomery County where I work. I'm sure it's true in Philadelphia where you work, Dan, and in other places throughout the Commonwealth, that we really try very hard, especially hard during open enrollment, to stay on top of getting phone calls returned and meeting with people. We in Montgomery County are back to doing some face-to-face meetings. Frankly, not at all of our sites, but at some. I find a lot of beneficiaries and their families are fine, with working by phone. In fact, I'll put in another pitch that I think I'm seeing happen more and more, and I'm happy. Seriously, as a counselor, it's happening more often, and that's a beneficiary will say to me, you know what? I am almost 90 at this point, and could you talk to my adult son or my adult daughter with my permission? And because I would like them to be able to guide me through this. And we are always happy to talk to trusted family members because I am affiliated, as I said earlier, with the Jefferson Health Abington Hospital System. I hear sometimes from people's social workers who basically say, my client's on Medicare and they're not sure what they want to do during open enrollment. And so with, again, the beneficiary's permission, we can talk to a social worker. So there are resources like that. The other thing is, we always tell beneficiaries the gold standard for really finding the plan, whether it's an HMO PPO or a Part D drug plan that works for you, is really on the www.medicare.gov plan finder. That's Medicare's official site, and the plan finder is how to run a search. Now, if the beneficiary is not comfortable working digitally with that site, again, we always tell them there are resources like PA-Medi that can certainly help them and do that for them. But the other thing is, and again, we always say, hey, if you have an adult child who really, as you've said, is interested in helping you with Medicare, most likely they're used to using a computer and they could be hugely helpful to you. in going through that plan finder. Another thing is we sometimes do have seniors who actually can use that website, but they're having an issue with a computer at home. And we always remind folks that your local public libraries are all Wi-Fi connected. And actually, we find public librarians are a wonderful resource if someone goes in and says, I think I can research this on the, Medicare Plan Finder. I might need a little help getting to the site or what have you. That's another opportunity to really be able to do your Medicare homework in a non-pressured way with very unbiased information. So there's a lot of opportunities, Dan, to not go it alone and not feel like you have no choice but to try to handle this on your own, even if you feel confused.
100%. That's tremendous advice. Lean on your loved ones. Children of aging parents absolutely want to be involved. They want to help, and they're capable of doing so. You mentioned librarians. Those, we call them, I don't know, gatekeepers in the community, people who are involved in the community, involved in areas where the infrastructure exists for them to be able to support you in making these decisions. And by and large, librarians are excellent with interfacing with all sorts of different issues that people encounter out in society, and they offer a safe and comfortable space to help people. That's an excellent recommendation, a good resource. You can always, again, call that PA Medi number at the PA Department of Aging at 1-800-783-7067. Always get in touch with 1-800-Medicare. You mentioned Medicare.gov, Diane. That's definitely the best place on that plan finder. If you have questions, again, see the PA Medi folks. Contact us at CARIE. We are toll free, again, 1-800-356-3606. For those who are digitally advanced, have comfort being online, www.carie.org. Again, Medicare.gov is a great resource. Diane, we've had an excellent conversation. I know it is a Friday. It's a nice fall day here in Southeast PA. The leaves are changing, so I want to let you get back to it. Go have a nice afternoon walk. Before that, though, I want to say thank you very much for this excellent information, for covering details about Medicare Open Enrollment, especially as related to all those HMO, PPO, Medicare Part D prescription drug plans, all the moving parts, and educating folks out there in our communities in Pennsylvania about how they can protect themselves against malicious activity during this time of year. If you have any other comments, now would be a great time while we have a couple minutes.
Okay. Well, actually, I just want to thank you again for the invite, Dan. This has been a lot of fun to do, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I will not be walking, Dan. I will be raking, but thank you.
You and I both, and it's funny because my driveway seems to be a whirlwind of leaves.
Right,
They come
right.
and they show up the next day. At any rate, Diane, thank you so much. Have an excellent weekend, and for all of you out there, thank you for listening, and stay in touch, subscribe, come back to us next time. Thank you for listening to this message by the Pennsylvania Senior Medicare Patrol. For more information, assistance, or to report suspected fraud, please contact CARIE toll-free at 1-800-356-3606 or visit us online at www.carie.org. That's www.carie.org.